Everybody to the January 12th, 2022 meeting, work meeting or study session of the Provo Planning Commission. I'll apologize off this bat because I'm going to be popping Jolly Ranchers tonight. My family got COVID for Christmas and I still have a little bit of a cough. So if I sound odd, that's the issue. I will begin with a statement. Due to Utah County's high level of coronavirus cases, as determined by the state's COVID-19 transmission index, I have determined that conducting meetings with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present there. Therefore, for the next 30 days, all meetings of the Planning Commission will be conducted by electronic means. With that, we will begin with, I guess, a roll call. So I'll go with the ones that I can see on the screen. Commissioner Henry.
Brian Henry, no conflicts.
All right. Commissioner Jensen. We don't need to say the conflicts right now. I'll just read off the names. I see Commissioner Henry, Commissioner Anderson, Commissioner Jensen, Commissioner Fife, and I know Commissioner Knuttgen is in the conference room. Are any other commissioners here? That's all right. We have enough to be a quorum. We will go ahead with our study session topic, which is the revision of the Broadview Shores land use map, or Broadview Shores master plan. And who has, it just says staff. I don't know who has that presentation.
We have the slides here in our room, but I assume Brad, if you're going to lead this discussion or one of your staff, I can scroll through the slides as you call them out.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting us bring this forward to the study session this evening. Sorry, I'm not there in person. I've actually been sick all week, and I'm just waiting for results of a COVID test. So hopefully my brain is there mostly tonight for you all, so that we can be safe, and it's a good thing we have Zoom to be able to do this. Many of you weren't around in the beginning of Broadview Shores, and prior to Broadview Shores, this project was called Celebration. Originally, the plan had Lakeview Parkway running right through the middle of the project. And when Ivory Homes purchased the property, we needed to do a land use amendment to account for the change in alignment of Lakeview Parkway. And at the time, we really didn't amend any of the original zoning text or zoning document that accompanied that original land use element. Just basically changed the land use map to show the location of Lakeview Parkway in its current state. Over the last couple of years, and as you can see here on the screen, this is the original approved plan when Ivory Homes took ownership and amended the land use map. This was the plan that was approved.
Brad?
Yeah.
Please allow a minute for Aaron to orient the Planning Commission to the map so that people are familiar with where we're even talking about. So
okay.
Use the cursor to point to the landmarks on the map.
Yeah, so here we have Geneva. Here's, was it 2000 North?
Yes.
Yes.
Between Provo and Orem. And then the future Lakeview Parkway here on the west.
Where's the new high school?
New high school is down here.
Right there. New high school's right there. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Brad. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's great. I appreciate it. that's why we're in a study session, so we can work together on this. So this plan is what we've been working on for the last couple of years, and we for maybe 2 years now, we've been in discussions with the mayor's office and development services to figure out a way that we could try and come up with a solution to drive a grocery store to the area and some commercial viability. The other thing that has changed in the area is the city has changed their standard road cross sections. In the past, the sidewalk was actually a part of the lot, and now it is contained within the cross section that's dedicated to the city. So all of the setbacks in the current zoning text need to be amended to account for the change in the road cross section standards. When the plan was originally adopted, it was kind of at the early stages of the Daybreak community, and a lot of the architectural styles were based upon some of the early Daybreak standards, and really have not the standards were not flexible to adapt to changing standards in the housing market. So what we would like to do is come to you with a new updated land use map and accompanying zone text amendment that would solve a lot of these problems. The plan that you see before you would be something similar to what you have on your current general land use map that you've been working on over the last couple of years. The format is very similar. The difference with this is we are looking at ERUs on this plan. So under the original SBD 5 plan, there were 1,157 units, residential units approved, as well as commercial units. In this plan, we have worked with staff to determine what the number of equivalent residential units that were planned for in the area, and the number that was used in all of the modeling for sewer, water, and storm drain was 1,600 ERUs, and that was confirmed by David Day and his department. The reason for changing it to ERUs is that allows us the flexibility to change with market conditions and to try and drive the commercial component to hopefully get a grocery store in that red area up on 2000 North and Lakeview Parkway. The idea would be to create a 17-acre site that would be set aside for the city to work with us to see if we could get a grocer in this area on the west side of Provo, near the Lakeview Parkway corridor. The other things that this would do is it would allow flexibility in different product types. If you scroll to the next pages, these are a couple of the existing homes we've built in our first few phases of the project. As you can see, they're beautiful homes. The project is turning out amazingly well. If you scroll to the next one, just to give you a feel of the community and the different products that we've built.
Brad, this is Chris. Why don't you describe those on the left, those homes on the left in the workforce?
Yeah. So if you go to the first pages of the homes. So these are obviously two of our larger homes in the community. These are on our 8,000 and 10,000 square foot lots in our first phases. And then if you go to the next slide, actually the next slide, sorry. on this plan, you can see on the top left and the bottom left, this was in our Broadview Shores Phase 3. These were set aside as our workforce housing homes, where we set aside a certain number of homes that were dedicated to those in the workforce, nurses, teachers, policemen, firemen, etc. And we held those out for those individuals that qualified, and we had a special pricing condition for those people in our Phase 3 of the development. So that as you can see, it still looks like the rest of the community, and it's been very well received. It looks great. If you scroll to the next page, there's our entry monument coming into the community. And now with the land use amendment that we're proposing, under the current conditions, the setbacks and the zoning types are very restrictive to be able to offer current multifamily and current single family designs in the marketplace. And I just have a few for you to show you what could be a potential for us if we did a land use change. This is a modern Scandinavian elevation that we've been building. This sits on about a 32-foot to 36-foot wide lot. It's a rear loaded home. And this has been a very popular plan. We've built this in Lehigh, and now we're building it up in Highland as well. And it's very popular. Under the current land use plan, we wouldn't be able to build this product.
Brad, what's your target market for this product? Who's your target market?
This is kind of the younger tech buyer is who's buying this, mainly young families and the people who are kind of in the tech industry. They like clean. The lines are very clean. The inside's very clean and modern. Not a lot of maintenance on the exterior. Kind of a lock and leave lifestyle.
What's the typical square footage for this product? I know you've got a range of models, but what's the typical around square footage?
It's about 2,300 to 2,500 square feet total.
Okay.
On this house. As you can see, it has front and side decks, depending on the unit, vaulted ceilings in the masters, and 9-foot wall plates. It's a very nice unit. These photographs are from our Holbrook Farms community, and we're also building them in Ridgeview in Highland City. So that's one product that we could offer if we were able to have a little more flexibility. Now, if you can go to the next one. This is another new product we are working on. This is a product we call our E-villas or elevated villas. This is a 3-story product. It fits on about a 32 by 50 foot wide lot. It's again about 2,500 square feet, 2-car garage with a driveway. These units have, all of them have a deck off the front that cantilevers over the garage. So not only do you have a 2-car garage, but you also have a partial covered carport in your driveway. Some of these units have rooftop decks, and we were looking at this product maybe out towards the lake with the views over the lake with a rooftop deck. We thought this would be a very nice product for something like that. Here's the plans with the rooftop decks. Again, this is another product that caters to that similar kind of lifestyle that we currently couldn't build with the existing zoning restrictions. If you scroll to the next page, this is a townhome product that we build in Daybreak called the Marina Villas. This is a very good looking townhome project, probably one of the best looking projects in Daybreak that's been built. Very well received. It's right on the lake. This product is about a 17 unit per acre product, but the buildings are broke up by different material types, and the way it lives and feels, it just is a great project. Again, it offers rooftop decks or just front balconies, rear balconies and patios. This is a great product. Again, under the current zoning restrictions, we couldn't build something like this product either. And I think, do we have any other pictures? Yeah, the last slide is a new concept that we are exploring. And we received this term, the Woonerf concept, from our architect out of Colorado, Mike Woodley. And this is basically creating a living street. It's a courtyard type street where you encourage the living in the courtyard space. A lot of times they have basketball hoops or barbecues at the end of the alleyway. And you have units that basically are townhome buildings that are back-to-back townhomes that front out onto a courtyard space into a living green space and courtyard space. It's kind of a new concept, and we are building this one in Lehigh as well. This is a great alternative for driving density in an area, and we think it's really going to be a good option in the community. We were looking at it earlier today, and the cost to build these is just so much lower than a traditional townhome that we can achieve a lot lower price point with this, so we can cover a different price point for the buyer in the area than what a traditional townhome would be. So I gave you all this because what we are trying to do is to create a diverse community that adds density, that will drive commercial, that will provide an opportunity to have the number of rooftops to get a grocery store in the area, meet the market demands, current market trends, and just be able to continue with the great community that we already have in Broadview Shores. If you have any questions, we can discuss details. This is meant to just be a initial broad overview of the community and the idea behind it. So
the question we need the planning commission to think about and eventually give us some input on, and we can have further meetings and discussions on this, but Ivory Homes would like to be able to move densities around based on market conditions and market factors. So there would be a cap on the number of units that could be built here, but they'd like the flexibility to be able to move things around. That's unusual for Provo. It's probably unusual for most communities. So we just need the planning commission at some point when we bring this forward to you, that's going to be a big point of discussion. And so we wanted to start introducing this to you now, ahead of time and early, to give you time to think about different aspects of this, think about any questions you may have. And we're happy to bring this back to another study session when you think you have some questions you'd like to discuss. But that's kind of the direction this is headed. Is that correct, Brad?
yes, and if you look at the map, I wish I could annotate on this, but I'm not able to for some reason. But if you look at what we call our Village 1 and our Village 2, those two villages are pretty much already built. So really the flexibility we are looking at now is Village 4 and Village 6. And of course, Village 8, which is the Village Commercial Center. Village 3 and Village 5 are actually just going to be more traditional single family. And then on this updated map, we've added Village 7, which is actually a piece of property that's owned by Provo City. When they were working with Provo High School on building the roads for Provo High School, they acquired Village 7. So we've included that in this land use map so that is zoned as part of this overall Broadview Shores project. So really the flexibility is in Village 4 and Village 6.
Okay. We do have some questions from commissioners. We'll start with Dave Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my questions maybe just to get some of the details down probably are best for Builder Aaron to help with. And Brad already kind of answered this, but maybe just in terms of the overall numbers, how many homes have been developed already? And maybe what's the project currently approved for in terms of a total number of homes?
So the total number of homes under the development agreement that can be built is 1,157. Planning Commission has heard me talk recently several times about our need for single family lots and single family detached homes. And Broadview Shores has been one of the areas where they've been consistently providing that product for it. How many homes have been built so far? I'm not sure, but I'm sure Brad or Chris can answer that.
Brad, can you help with that?
Yeah,
Give or take,
I think
200, 300.
We've built about 300 homes total so far.
So maybe a quarter-ish through the project.
Correct.
Okay. In terms of more density, help me with kind of the scale of that. What's being proposed there? Going from 1,157 maybe to what?
Well, actually, the density wouldn't change. So under the original plan, you had 1,157 units and then some commercial units. And under the current zoning text, that commercial could be kind of a live work type of commercial. So those units could be stacked upon the commercial. So under the revised plan, we just moved it to ERUs. So in the Village Town Center, which was just highlighted, that was an area that was kind of a live work type of area under the current plan. And under the proposed plan, we would just switch to ERU. So the total number of equivalent residential units would stay the same.
Okay. I appreciate this, and I got to tell you, I'm really hung up on the ERU nomenclature here. That's not what I would typically use that phrase to try to quantify or to note. I think you're talking about something other than just like a utility impact or something like that. Is that right? For example, I wouldn't see a grocer if they were to locate as necessarily having all that significant of an impact on sewer, which it seems like has been kind of the utility constriction in the area. And I don't mean to be critical necessarily with that, but for me, it would be easier to get my head around if we were just talking like max number of units and Ivory's ability, maybe to shift density around, like you said, different housing products and that kind of thing.
Brad or David, for the benefit of the Planning Commission members, would you define and describe ERUs?
Yeah, I can describe it from my standpoint. An ERU is just an equivalent residential unit. So different commercial uses utilize a different amount of utility resource. So based upon the use, you might have one that uses 3 ERUs per acre or one that uses 10 ERUs per acre. And so without knowing what the commercial use is, it's hard to know how many ERUs that can support. And so, but the overall plan was sized based upon a certain number of units. So
Brad, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
There. And this is for staff, kind of getting back to maybe what is a question. Is utility capacity the biggest concern in staff's mind, or is it the composition of the project in terms of having more homes that are kind of what I would maybe say sort of like your traditional suburban kind of homes versus maybe some of the things that Brad showed a minute ago? I'm not used to kind of, again, I'd say suburban commercial uses is really having a huge utility impact. I think oftentimes it's less than residential even.
I'll let David Day address the utility issue. In terms of the product types or densities, one benefit I see to what Ivory Homes has been describing to us is that over the last few years, Planning Commission City Council have had a lot of discussions where we've discussed the missing middle. And, you know, we have tons of stacked stuff in Provo and we have a lot of single family. We really are missing some other product types, and they showed you some examples of what those could be. So if this project helps us to achieve that market segment, that missing middle, I think that's something the city should take a serious look at, or at least consider. In terms of the utility constraints, I'll let David Day jump in on that.
Okay, Bill, I appreciate that. But so what you're saying then is, from your perspective, utilities aren't the main reason for the conversation.
Not as long as they stay at 1,600. No, I don't think so.
Right.
Rather than David.
And that's good for me, because I don't see utilities being any more impactful with a commercial use than 1,157 residential units. And maybe then the red that I'm seeing on the plan here and the blue on the north end, is one commercial and one residential, or?
Yes, red is commercial, blue is residential.
Why commercial off Geneva?
The traffic projections are saying that there's going to be a lot more traffic on Lakeview Parkway in the future than there will be on Geneva.
How far into the future? Do you have a feel for that?
David, do you have a feel for that?
As soon as that Lakeview Parkway is connected to Geneva Road to the north, that'll be an Orem project, and I'm not sure their timetable on that. Regarding the utilities, though, that the ERU type of analysis is, I think, easier from a utility standpoint to analyze, and it gives, I think, a lot more flexibility in design, because, like you said, Dave, the retail is a lot less load on the utility system than is a residential unit. So if we split that up into ERUs and are able to quantify each of those uses, in my mind, it gives a lot more flexibility to the developer to mix things up.
Okay, I appreciate that. My guess would be that the Lakeview connection is probably many years away, and that the traffic that would support a grocer on Lakeview in this part of the community likewise is many years away. So just kind of that sort of arrangement makes me wonder about the viability of what we're talking about tonight. And just a couple more thoughts and I'll shut up. I agree with Bill. I think there are opportunities out here for, more than just single family detached homes on quarter acre lots. Provo is missing a lot of things relative to new housing products that are being brought into the community now, but Provo certainly is missing, I think, single family detached homes on quarter acre lots. So I would want probably not to just make this a free for all going forward, but maybe to have some parameters that would need to be met in terms of how much of the project would maybe need to be or could be certain housing types and that type of a thing. And aside from that, the idea of the flexibility, I guess, doesn't concern me.
Can I add just a little more information to the traffic circulation? That 2000 North will be connected in the next year as part of a traffic signal that's going in on Geneva Road in 2000. So a lot of this will be happening in the next couple of years of all of those connections. So I think with that connection, there'll be some people that would start using Lakeview Parkway in the future. When that gets connected to Geneva Road, when the Lakeview Parkway gets connected to Geneva Road, the priority of the intersection would be to send the traffic down Lakeview Parkway rather than Geneva Road. So just the way the intersection would be lined up. And so the idea is to send the heavier volume down Lakeview Parkway, which will be built for that type of volume. And then all of the people who live on Geneva Road or prefer to go that way could go that way. But MAG's model, in I think 2050 puts Lakeview Parkway up around 30,000 cars a day. So that's pretty high.
And if I can say something on behalf of Ivory, Dave, some of your points, we don't disagree with you about the product. I mean, the market is strong in a lot of different segments. In terms of realigning where the uses go, back in 2004, 5, 6, when the original plan was approved, it didn't contemplate Lakeview Parkway as being that big of a road. So what is now the village, the blue one, I can't see it on my screen. There was an idea of having some commercial there, but we have taken the direction and the input of the city relative to the siting of a potential commercial site there based upon what the future uses would be. And the other thing I would tell you is about 3 years ago, we worked with David Day and Dave Graves to secure the MAG funding to buy the right of way through here. They had to get our agreement that we would sell it to them in a timely way to the city. So the city was able to get MAG money to secure the right of way location here, which they have done. And so it's allowed the city to push up the construction of that road significantly and accelerate it significantly, because as it goes to the south and goes towards the airport, it's going to become a real major thoroughfare. And in terms of just the ERUs and stuff, I just want to jump in a little bit on that discussion. When we're saying that under the current zone, we're not able to provide that kind of housing, it's because the original approval and then the amended one was very prescriptive. It was like, this is what this needs to look like 20 years from now. And the reality is that there's some other opportunities. And if we can just get a little bit more flexibility and be able to move these uses around, we could take advantage of bringing some of those things. If the city said, no, we just keep building what you're building, we're fine with that too. We can just move through the product here. But it will foreclose out an opportunity to have a commercial center here that would be viable. And it might be 20 years from now. Heck, we don't know if we're still going to be going to grocery stores in 20 years. I don't know. I don't know what's going to be viable here, but I do know once we build on it, it's going to be over. You won't have the opportunity to have that flexibility. So that's really in a nutshell where we're coming from. This is just give us some feedback from the planning commission on, what do you think of this plan? And if you don't like this, tell us what you would like. And then we can go to the council and see, and see what they say.
Thank you. Commissioner Fife, you've been waiting for a while.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the conversation with Commissioner Anderson, or I guess the issues that he brought up, answered a lot of my questions. My other question that hasn't been answered yet, that I'm sure has probably been answered in the past, I'm just new to the commission, but you guys are saying previously that the current land use would not allow for those smaller residential units. I'm wondering what are the current lot sizes and what are the proposed lot sizes going to be?
So under the current zoning, the smallest lot can be a 5,000 square foot lot. Those plans that I was showing are about a 3,000 square foot lot. And under the current zoning, you can only attach 4 units in a townhome building, or you can do a mansion home condominium. Under the current market conditions, very few people are doing condominiums right now, and because of financing regulations, and really that's your only options for multifamily in the current plan, is to do a 4-plex or a condominium plan. So we don't have a lot of flexibility for any kind of affordable product in the current zoning of the SPD 5 zone text.
Brad, if I just might add to that, the former plan that was adopted for the Plan Commission's kind of background on that was very specific, even going as far as putting in specific approved elevations for some of these home types.
Correct.
Which some of those just aren't being built anymore, and like Brad has said, this new option would give more variety to meet today's demands rather than what was approved 15 years ago.
For instance, modern architecture is not allowed in the current plan. So you couldn't do a modern looking architectural home.
Thank you. So if I understand correctly, the new proposed lot size of 3,000 square feet, we're looking at really just kind of a space just big enough to put, for instance, that Scandinavian home with, very little setbacks on all sides. Is that correct? I'm okay with all of that. I'm just wondering if I'm in the right.
Yeah, well, it's really kind of up for conversation, but the idea would be to try and get something that clusters open space and provides an affordable option for the buyer with a low maintenance yard option. So that's just one product type. There's who knows what the product types will be 10 years from now, and that's why we're trying to get a zoning map and zone text that allows for change over time, so that we can adapt to the market changes.
So I'll just jump in really quick here and say that this seems to speak to the needs that we perceived and we've been talking about for the last 6 months or longer, of having a variety of housing types. So I think I like this as an overall. Obviously, the specifics would need to be nailed down as development moved into each of those villages. But the general idea of allowing for more flexibility and changing design standards makes a lot of sense to me. Brian Henry is the next commissioner with his hand up.
Yeah, first of all, beautiful project, beautiful pictures. It seems like this is going to be a real asset in the city. A couple thoughts just on livability. The one thing I've learned doing land planning is I find that the smaller the house, if they're front loaded products, they create parking nightmares. And the front yards all turn into just concrete everywhere. There's concrete in the street and the driveways, and there's like 10 feet between driveways, and it's just concrete everywhere. So I would highly encourage alleyways on any small footprint product. They just create problems, and they're not real inviting spaces for pedestrians if it's just driveway after driveway after driveway that many times aren't long enough to fit a typical car or a Suburban or a truck. And so it just makes a very bad pedestrian experience. The VUNERFs, those are really funny to me. What a true VUNERF is in Holland, and the way we Americanize them here is a very different thing. My concern there is we show pretty pictures with lots of plants. Every VUNERF I've seen is a concrete canyon that is not an inviting space. So I'd like to see the pretty pictures actually get built in those VUNERF concepts, but I love the idea that you guys are thinking about those types of things. But I have seen them in Denver, and the pretty pictures look nice, and then you see what's built and you're like, really? This is what we're going to get? Along with...
It seems like a consistent constraint on that is when we start talking about those kinds of concepts, and then the fire department chimes in and the garbage collection department chimes in, it expands into something way more than what they do in Europe. If you look at the little street between right behind New Skin, that was inspired by the VUNERF. But again, we didn't quite get there. We didn't quite achieve that. But I agree with what you're saying, but it's sometimes hard to achieve. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, and I agree. The street behind New Skin is probably my favorite street in the city. Something interesting, 2 or 3 years ago, this discussion broke out on Facebook, and everyone was blaming the fire trucks for the wide streets. The fire marshal got on and said, if I need to buy smaller trucks, I'll buy smaller trucks. The best emergency is the one we don't have to go to. So if wide streets are causing accidents, let's build narrow streets and I'll buy smaller equipment. I wish I had saved that post because it fixed the discussion immediately. But I do understand that we do have to accommodate very large things in America.
So
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, before you move on, what we're looking at doing is trying to keep the block length of that VUNERF to a manageable size, where the fires actually fought from the streets that are running perpendicular to the alley or to the living street. And then also, we agree 100% with you that it has to be inviting. So we're looking at doing either a stamped asphalt or a stamped concrete to set that apart as a unique space, and trying to amenitize it. So any suggestions you have on that, we're open to that, because we agree it needs to be an inviting space to make it work.
No, that sounds good. Just a small thing on that. Being a landscape architect and dealing with these things, stamped concrete doesn't look good after a few years. The freeze thaw gets into those and they just break apart and they get spalled, and it's rare to see a stamped concrete 10 years later that looks as good as when it was installed. So I'd encourage pavers if you can go that route. But stamped concrete just doesn't hold up in our climate for very long. But then just the last item is kind of a general for the whole project. My worry about flexibility is that in good development, you need an intense road needs intense development. A less intense road should be less intense development. Like Village 2, where I believe it's single family, that makes sense to have larger lots. Village 4 to me is where showing that you've got a major road, that one to me seems like that's where the townhomes and the Scandinavian concepts, I call them detached townhomes. That to me is where those should be. So I worry about the flexibility that we end up with incompatible intensities. We have low intensity streets with high intensity developments lining it, and we end up with traffic problems and parking issues. I'm sure you guys would think through those and those would be considered, but that was just one red flag that I felt.
So just to give you some context here, Village One, I can't put my cursor below the school site there, the purple school site.
Yeah.
The elementary school site. We have developed up to about there. Going from there, north, wrapping around the school, those are all 8,000 to 10,000 square foot lots on that Village One.
Okay.
That's already planned and ready to go. Village Two, the north half of Village Two is already developed. So really the in-between portion is where we were thinking of having kind of a Scandinavian village with a clubhouse right there for everyone to use right along, I believe that's 3600, right along that street right there, which is a street. Village 4, you are 100% correct. That is the perfect location for the higher density, as well as the purple area right across from the commercial to help drive the commercial. So that was, if you follow the map, that is the intention. Higher density would be Village 4 and Village 6.
Okay, our time is getting short and we still have 2 more comments. So I'm going to jump to Commissioner Jensen and then Commissioner Anderson.
If Commissioner Jensen can figure out how to unmute herself. I just want to clarify what we're asking here. I think you're saying we want flexibility, and that would mean that you would need density flexibility. You would need to amend the plan that's already been approved to provide density flexibility, maybe create a new zone that would allow for flexibility in the underlying zone, and then permission to alter the architecture or the design that was previously approved. Is that why we're meeting with you, Mr. McKay?
Yes, I believe it would just be a SPD 5 amendment.
Yeah, I think we'd work within the existing zone and just make alterations to that existing zone in the books.
So it would be on our end creating new language for a zone that already exists that would allow those things that he would need for his development.
Yeah, I think it would come from the applicant, but we'd work with him on that language.
Okay. So I want to reiterate what Laurie said, that's kind of what we've been talking about with our discussion of the West Side Plan intent statement, where we like the idea of having flexibility in a zone where we can say, okay, this whole project's been approved, and as long as it stays to this density overall, we're fine with it. Is that so? I guess I was a little confused to hear this being asked because it's something we already are all kind of on board with. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Okay. Then specifically for this plan, I have the same concerns as Brian did. I remember when economic development presented to us about a grocery store on the west side. Is it Keith? That's the economic development guy. He said a grocery store wouldn't come to this area of town because it's on the edge instead of in the center. Maybe I remembered that wrong, but I thought that was part of it, is that it's not at a really major intersection like a freeway exit or something like that borders multiple cities where it butts up to a lake almost. So I'm concerned about, even though the traffic on Lake Shore Drive will ultimately be higher, I'm concerned about the draw there, because we have a lot of roads in town like State Street in Southeast Provo that have a lot of units on them and a lot of traffic that goes down them and still are not attracting commercial. So I'm afraid we're going to end up with a dance studio and a bank, and that's going to be commercial there, and which would still be, you know, a nice local commercial need, but it's not the grocery store that we're trying to sell it as. So I'm concerned that that's not realistic. Then the last thing is the living street. I don't like that idea just as a pedestrian safety issue. It seems really nice in a picture, but I don't really know that I want to encourage a development to have a play courtyard be also the driving surface. So that's just my feedback. That's all, Laurie.
Okay, Dave?
I'll try to go soundbite-ish to be really quick here. I agree with everything that's been said about modifying the existing plan to allow for different new housing products to be built in the development. That being said, the prescriptive model where the city is given a plan that shows, you know, what the composition of the project will be in terms of different housing types and that type of a thing is not a bad model. And I think that's the best route to take here. And if in a few years, there's a reason to amend that approval, a developer comes back, we talk about it, and decisions are made as to what's best at that point in time. So no concerns, I think, with what I've seen, but the process that, if I'm hearing it right, is that's being proposed. I don't see a lot of benefit, particularly when we're only talking about, you know, a remaining maybe 850 homes, which in a market like this with different housing products, I mean, that should not be a 10-year project. Things should develop much more quickly than that. And those are my thoughts.
Laura, I think you're muted.
I clicked on it. I do appreciate having you here, and I think that this is a conversation that would be good to continue and get a little bit more detail going. So it would be good if you came back because this is really intriguing to me, and I'd like to see things move forward. We are short of time. We only have 8 minutes before we're supposed to start the hearing. So we'll go ahead and close the work meeting and see everybody again in just a few minutes.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Brett.
Do we have any additional commissioners in the conference room?
Yes, Miles is here now.
Okay, good. We have another minute before we go, and being that us Americans are not necessarily experts on parliamentary procedure, I know that it was a year before I was It is 6 p.m. on January 12th, 2022, and this is the Planning Commission hearing. We have 3 items on the agenda. 2 of them are legislative, so those are marked with an asterisk, and those are the ones that we will be forwarding a recommendation to the municipal council. And Rachel, do I need to read the statement again?
Yes.
Okay. This is the statement about open and public meetings. Due to Utah County's high level of coronavirus cases as determined by the state's COVID-19 transmission index, I have determined that conducting meetings with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present there. Therefore, for the next 30 days, all meetings of the Planning Commission will be conducted via electronic means. And then we will proceed to the roll call. Commissioner Henry.
Brian Henry, no conflicts.
Commissioner Knuttgen.
Robert Knuttgen, no conflicts.
Commissioner Anderson.
Dave Anderson, no conflicts.
Commissioner Fife.
Peter Fife, no conflicts.
Commissioner Miller.
Miles Miller, no conflicts.
Commissioner Jensen.
Lisa Jensen, no conflicts.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Daniel Gonzalez, no conflicts.
And I am Laurie Urquiaga, and I have no conflicts. We will proceed with the first 2 items on our agenda. I will read them in together. Item number 1, Chris and Karen Knuttgen request project plan approval for 4 townhome units in a proposed low-density residential zone located at 152 East, 500 South in the Mazer neighborhood. And item 2, Chris and Karen Knuttgen requested zone change from residential conservation to low-density residential to allow for 4 townhome units located at 152 East, 500 South in the Mazer neighborhood. All right, Mr. Ardmore, would you make the staff presentation?
Yes, thank you. So just to orient you, this is the property location between 500, 600 South and 100 and 200 East. It's in the center of the block. Currently in the RC zone, general plan is residential, and it's in the part of the Mazer neighborhood plan. So I could just run through those slides real quick. As you can see, this item, I'll just leave that up there for now. This item, if you recall, was brought before you back on September 25th. At that time, the Planning Commission continued the concept plan or the project plan and the rezone request. If you reviewed your staff report packets on page 2 of the first staff report, there's kind of a line item of all the issues that you had with the initial application, the initial project plan, and items that you wanted addressed for it to come back to you as planning commissioners. Since that time, the applicant has updated a couple things, and let me just kind of run through those. As you can see, the previous site landscape plan is on the left and the update is on the right. So a couple of things to note is the pedestrian pavers along the west side of the building, increased landscaping along the south and east of the building. That was one of the requests from Planning Commission as a buffer. Down here in the southeast corner, there's an addition of the light pole to provide some more lighting and safety in the parking lot. And then you can see the new tree up in the front yard. So they did address those issues. However, as you can see in the staff report, staff feels like they didn't address the majority of the issues. Staff also, in analyzing this, has found some code issues that don't meet the zone that's being proposed. Just to be brief, staff feels that this is not the best use of the low density residential zone. One, because of all the items that the Planning Commission noted at the last hearing in September, and then those design regulations for the LDR zone. So we are recommending denial on this project plan and zone change. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff? Commissioner Fife.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, in the notes, I read that there were 12 parking spaces required. I'm only seeing, I think, 8 here. Where are the additional parking spaces?
So there's 4 single car garages, and then they have these surface spots.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, that answers the question. I thought those were stairwells. Thanks.
Oh, no problem.
Any other questions for staff? All right, then we will invite the applicant to make his presentation, Mr. Knuttgen.
This is Greg Cronin with Davies Design Build. I am also here as a support to Mr. Knuttgen. And I'm trying to see if he is actually unmuting and if he's going to speak first or if he'd like me to go. It's hard. I apologize for the Zoom thing. I was trying to keep up with everybody. He's there. So, Chris, would you like me to proceed or would you like to share with them your thoughts first?
You can go ahead, Greg.
Okay. Number one, I want to thank Aaron for his summary of the project. I enjoyed meeting Aaron in this process and talking with him. Enjoyed his professionalism. We have taken a look at this. It's been designed what we understand to meet the code. These, if there's a code issue, I guess we would like to know exactly what code issue for the requested zone is not met. And then the other thing is, it has been mentioned the different things that were done to change in accordance to the commission's request. The only thing that was not done was drop a specific unit to go down to a 3-unit instead of a 4-unit, which the previous staff was actually supportive of. And then we changed from one staff member over to Aaron. And in that transition, it became more of the opinion that 4 will not work. We left a meeting prior saying that 4 does meet the code. But I'm welcome, anyone or Aaron to communicate to us. He's used the word multiple things that were not met. I think that there were some suggestions. There were a few things open to flexibility as we changed certain things. Some things weren't as relevant to dress up and to create a much better livable community there on that street. So can you address, can we handle anything the commission would like to address specific to the list of unmet items? So we can speak to that?
Commissioners, do we, what is the square footage of the lot?
I apologize, but I am unable to see. Aaron, could you answer that for us, please?
I can, yeah, it's 0.4 acres.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have the green space and the other things there, but go ahead. Sorry.
No, there's just one place where in the staff report, it mentioned 10,000 square feet, and I don't translate acres to feet very well. So does it meet that 10,000 square foot?
Yeah.
0.4 would be 10,000 plus square feet. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Jensen has a question or comment.
Yeah, he had asked if we would just talk about some of the things that were not addressed that the Planning Commission was concerned about. So I thought I would just give what I remember from the discussion, if that's helpful. I'm just looking at page 2 of item 1 staff report where Mr. Ardmore listed the items that we had talked about. So the reason for number 1, vary the color and material treatments between units to add variety to building mass, as I remember, was because we didn't want it to look like a giant wall and for the adjacent properties. And so that was just to make it look like 4 distinct units instead of one giant wall. So specifically on that rear elevation, I think labeled here as left elevation, this would increase the aesthetics from that side, but it would also break it up so it didn't look like a giant house on the right elevation as shown.
Well, can you do a matter of process? Just let me know when you would like to have us answer. If you want to cover more than one, or just let me know so I don't interrupt you, please.
Okay, well, I mean, it's not in the, I don't know how this works, but it's not in the plan that's presented to us. So do we still talk about it? If
I can share, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I can share with you what we did do. We increased the actual landscaping on that side, and it is a hill that steps down. So it does start from one and go to the end. And so there was a significant amount of landscape added. And he was even willing to put a sidewalk back there, but it was not going to be used because we don't really have rear doors due to the elevation changes. But he spent a lot of energy to increase the landscaping to break up that view from the neighboring properties. And as far as colors and stuff, that can come together in the construction drawings for the building. So there will be some modifications available to the city. They're not stuck with this absolute look, but this is definitely the shape and stuff will stay similar, but we can work with some different construction materials to create a little more architect looking. The commission will have to approve that, as a construction site plan.
Right. And I see that it looks like there's some of those tall, narrow trees on the updated landscape plan, if that's what I'm looking at there. That will help to break that up. I think the other suggestion besides using different materials was even to separate the units just so they weren't one big wall. So that's numbers 1 and 2. That's what, if I remember correctly, the Planning Commission had in mind there.
To address, yeah, I'm sorry. You want me to address that other one too, or?
Go for it.
To address the different heights, that would be a reconstruction that we could look into as we put the actual final construction drawings together. But I think you'll find that the breaking up of the back, the different color variations can be addressed in the construction plan. And if we have to, there's the potential of lifting one of the units up a couple feet and dropping another one. So, but I think it's rather subjective to the overall process at this point, but it will come in under the construction approval.
Just to be clear, Mr. Cronin, the Planning Commission wouldn't be seeing this again at
you would not
construction time.
No, it will be interstaff and city that would review those.
I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, they will have the opportunity, but we don't just move forward exactly with this. I mean, we have to continue to provide more information.
And number 4, would be the same as number 1 and 2, just something that blends it in with the neighborhood better, that doesn't make it look like a giant building that's out of place. Sidewalks were addressed. Moving the building to the north, as listed in number 7, was so that you could get more parking back there and have better access back there.
Yeah, and we have met the parking requirements by having it where it is north, so that we do have the full 12 spots required.
I think there's only 11.
The bike parking can be scratched if you just approve with the scratching of the bike parking. It's a parking lot spot, but he just opted to put some bicycle areas there, which would be more fitting to the tenants possibly. So it's not required that those biking stalls stay there.
And what did you do with the trash container that was previously there in that plan?
We had let me look at the units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think what we did was we made that green space. We made the first parking place a little larger to just kind of open up parking area, but we can
Yeah,
work
Greg,
on one additional parking. Go ahead, talk about that.
Greg, I can speak on that. So after I met with you guys and I went and met with Brandon had asked that we make one of those parking spots a little bit larger for ADA access. And so that slashed area, that grayish area between the bike parking and the parking spot to the north of it, yes, right there, is for ADA access. So it allowed, either a larger vehicle or wheelchair access. And then I had talked to Brandon about either adding motorcycle parking, scooter parking, or bicycle parking on that final spot. So to Greg's point, we could take down the landscaping and make that biking area a parking spot, but kind of to Brandon's request, we added that ADA parking and the scooter parking there.
And I would like to address something that in the discussion that Steve Davies, myself, Brandon all met, is that we were requested to change these from one owner unit to separate townhouses so that every unit is sellable as an individual unit, which means that they can have their own trash cans as an option to do that, which essentially can either eliminate that or we can work within the plan to provide a dumpster, but each one would have its own garbage as a possibility.
That answers my question about where the dumpster went. And then the porches along the sides of the building, I think we were just trying to make it a more livable space, a more homey area where people will want to stay instead of just pass through. So that's all I wanted to just remind the applicant about.
Yeah, and if I want to address that, he did add all the pavers and create kind of a hardscape in the front to create more of a warm, welcoming type of approach to each unit. And so that was an effort to soften up and create a welcoming entrance with a little more landscaping along there.
Commissioner Urquiaga, you are muted.
Oh, am I? Okay. As I'm talking away. I was just looking at the elevations that face west, and I do know that we wanted to make sure that those door areas, entrances were protected from weather. It looks like they've got some minimal protection, but I think that was one of our concerns previously as well. Commissioner Anderson, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I think kind of following up on maybe the applicant's question about how they haven't met some of the things that were discussed earlier. And I think Commissioner Jensen did a great job of summarizing. and maybe I'm even just recalling thoughts that I had the last time we looked at this that I don't know that I necessarily shared, but first of all, I think the idea that, if I remember already right, that Mr. Ardmore went back to, or that was referenced about there being 3 homes on the property instead of 4, for me, that was kind of fundamental to the idea of not feeling that this plan really accommodated just what residents' needs would be. The lack, for example, of any kind of maybe semi common space outside for people in the form of like a balcony or a porch, which is space that people appreciate having. That's, I think, a fundamental aspect of just life, having some space where you can go outside, where it's not, entirely open to the rest of the world. Just even things we've talked about tonight, I think further illustrate the challenge this plan presents just in terms of fitting everything in. If residents have individual garbage cans, then they will not be parking in garages of this size. So then we have a parking issue, or you have garbage cans out that make it difficult to, traverse the lane that's there, as opposed to, having some type of common garbage receptacle, which becomes important. Maybe without getting into more specifics, the architecture for me, where it's really a box, there's not variation like change of plane on either the east or west facing sides, for that matter, not on really any of them. There is the small overhang on the street facing side. But understanding that this is not a part of the community that's seen a lot of investment in recent years. And I think it would be great to see that in a lot of ways. For me, it's just the overall design that doesn't rise to the level of approving the project, and not feeling at all that this design really just accommodates the fundamental needs that people have to live in a project like this. And I think most of that harkens back to the conversations that we had last year. So there's just a few of my thoughts, and I'll leave it at that.
I might address some of that. I mean, we've done quite a bit of design and development, but each of these individual units has literally its own gable or its own. The middle one has a shared one, but it has a separate gable as well. When you look at the proximity, the target of those people that will be trying to acquire housing in today's market, which is astronomically expensive, these are actually far more differentiating than some of the lesser, more boxy products that are put out there. And so there is quite the difference per the elevation going down the side, looking at the front doors. You can distinctly tell every unit. And so I don't follow exactly the non-elevation changes. I think the back wall on the east side with the landscaping goes deep. It's not going to be something that it's going to be intrusive to the street by any means. But so those are the things that we look at. And these are what we would consider an upgrade design for what we would call entry homes that can be lived in for quite a while, because people won't be going outside of their budgets to obtain a home and then be able to reside there for quite a while, where the market has such a shortage of that. So as we've come in, I commend, the applicant, the owner, for wanting to create a nice product that provides 4 residences for the people in the area. And I know there's a subjectivity that's been brought up of livability. There's quite a few nice apartments and nice complexes around that aren't as individualized and homey as this will be, with their own garage parking and some other things that they'll pick up that otherwise just will simply not be available to people at that price point in Provo. So I just share that about my interpretation of the design. I respect everyone's opinions, but we do feel that the plan meets the code itself, and we would recommend moving forward to the planning to the city council. And hopefully some of the things that have been mentioned truly have addressed those other items just in different ways. But of course, we do have 4 units and not 3. So that's something that's, going to lessen one more residence in the area for someone who needs to afford a reasonably priced home. And this is an opportunity to put 4 nice homes on the ground. So those are kind of my thoughts. So thank you so much for y'all's comments. It's been wonderful. Appreciate the time and effort put into the discussion.
Commissioner Fife?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is just a quick question, I guess, for I guess the zoning at hand. So I heard thrown around that these are going to be townhomes in which each townhome can be sold separately. Does that mean they each get their own parceling, or how is that decided?
It fits the zone, and it was the request of, I think, the commission not to have one rental unit that is basically a apartment fourplex. They wanted to have the ability to have an HOA and have these 4 units participate together but have individual ownership. If I'm not mistaken, the applicant speak to that, but that's what I heard in our meeting with Brandon, is that they preferred that they have the ability to sell them one at a time versus doing, more of a pure rental option for the area. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was one of the items I wrote down last time, that the commission's desire was that those would be sold individually and allowed for an individual homeowner. And so that was one of the accommodations that we met.
Which is rather significant from the standpoint of changing the path of that property over time.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm just for, I guess, background, I am new to the commission, so I was not present during that meeting on September 25th. But one more question then about that. I've heard thrown around that there was originally 3 units and it got bumped up to 4 units, and this 3 to 4 units has been thrown around. Just for my situational awareness, why was 4 units decided? Not that I'm for or against it. I'm just trying to understand why 4 units was decided and not 3, or vice versa.
Applicant can talk to that, but I can share with you that it's always been 4. It was the request to drop it to 3 was what we received. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the city building department approved our last plan when we met in September, and it was 4 units. And through the course of the conversation, Brandon had mentioned that a 3 individual home on a property smaller than this, less than a mile away, had just been approved. And we had discussed a little bit, touched on the fringes of going with 3 units. The issue with that is this has been in with the city for 3 years, and I think we addressed most of the items that the commission had talked about, and to go back and redesign it and figure out how to make a driveway with 3 individual homes on it. There's just a significant cost to design each one of those homes and figure out how to get a 20-foot wide driveway for fire or ambulance in there to accommodate that. And so when I met with Brandon, we as we looked at the lot and how it's, very long but narrow, he soon saw that couldn't be accomplished having 3 individual homes.
And I may speak just to the constructability of the product. Constructability of the project changes dramatically to drop an entire unit in today's economy and market. So it changes significantly the opportunity to provide, additional housing in the area for sure. And these could potentially be sold. So we're not talking about somebody who's going to rent them and hold them forever and just never put them into the market at some point. I mean, this is opening up some of your quote affordable, product in the marketplace as we move forward.
Okay, do we have any other commissioner comments?
Robert has one.
The unit that'll be on the furthest to the south, how close will it be to the manufacturing? And what manufacturing is there? Will it be problems with noise or problems with lights?
So I can speak on the use of the property to the south. Right now, it's just kind of a storage yard for a construction plumbing company.
It's commercial.
Right.
Light manufacturing.
And that's a tow yard right here to the southeast of the project.
Would that
So
be used at night?
it's an impound lot. I'm not sure on the hours of operation there.
Will they impound them all night long?
Yeah.
And I appreciate the question. I think the marketability and livability of it, I'd have no question in my outlook as a real estate broker and developer and working within this group that these will not be highly desired units and there'll be minimal interruptions in my professional opinion, but that's open for opinions. So
Is that it for questions? All right. Do we have public comment? Do we have the Mazer Neighborhood Chair?
We don't have anyone on right now, but let's give it 30 seconds since there is a lag in the recording time.
We do have someone in the room. Lori.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If that person would take your seat and then introduce themselves. We'd like your name and also the place where you live.
My name's Sam Ullman. I live in Provo, and I'm a close neighbor to this property. And I got a couple of questions. Number one, why didn't the developer just make a list of the things that were discussed by the Planning Commission last time and address them? And to claim that he doesn't know what they're asking is a bit of a stretch, because they were very clear. Among them, there's no place for a garbage can on that whole lot. And I don't know of anybody in our neighborhood that doesn't have too much garbage. The parking issues exist and are amplified by eliminating at least one parking, but getting in and out of that place, if you look at the side elevation, it'll be so steep that if there's any rain, you couldn't get down it. It's about from what I can tell, about an 8-foot drop from the sidewalk to where the first garage is, and there's no indication of how you're going to make that. Also, the bottom of the lot is so low that many of the houses on that street with that same elevation have to pump their sewer up to get it to the sewer. The sewer line is not all that deep there. So if your lights go out, you can't flush your toilet. Those are significant issues for somebody living there. My concern is, as a neighbor, the traffic issues in terms of parking. There are no parkings on the street available most of the time. And that will be something that happens. The idea of it's going to be expensive or cheap or whatever. This property was bought when it was a song. Anybody that bought it when this was transferred is making money no matter how you do it. This is not an economic issue. There's no economic hardship by having to do something different. And yes, I am familiar with what happened and who lived there. It's already a duplex with a trailer behind it that's used for housing, but I do not believe it's connected to the sewer. And so we're not talking about a significant change in use, or just a change in the size of stuff. Nobody could put the way the design is, nobody could have a barbecue. Well, summertime's going to come and we'll have barbecues. There's no place to put your barbecue grill in this whole design. And that's sad. But as a neighbor, I think the idea of putting only 3 units on there, and you only make a little bit less money than you would have if you put 4. It doesn't look like it's going to be available to be purchased by individual homeowners. That was talked about by the last planning commission, how to split it or how to partition the property so that it could be bought individually. And it doesn't look like that's happened. Now, I am concerned for the neighbors around us, but I'm more concerned about the people that will live there. Those people will be my neighbors. My wife will take care of them when they're sick, because she does that. And if the lawn gets too long, I'll go mow it, because that's what I do. And any rate, that's all I have to say. I appreciate the planning commission changing their position on this as more details came out in the information. And I think that at the present time, it doesn't meet the zone the way it is planned, because they're asking for a zone change. To say that, oh, it meets the zone. Yeah, it meets the zone. If you change the zone far enough, you can meet any zone. But at the present time, it does not meet the zone. And there's significant reasons for that zone being in place. And basically for projects specifically like this one that force the neighbors and the city to reevaluate how property is used in this area. And thank you for your help, and I appreciate your service to the city. You in the planning commission are the residents of Provo, as opposed to the people developing this property. And many of the city employees don't live here, but we do, and we appreciate your input as residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else?
I would simply address the fact that I appreciate the comments very much. This is Greg Cron Davis. And as it relates to the items that we were addressing, I did not wish to indicate we were not aware of them. I just wanted them to be gone through on this call sequentially so we could address each of them for the commission. So I do thank so much for people like himself coming out and making a voice in the community. So thank you for the comments.
Rachel, do we have any calls?
We do not have any calls. Mr. Ardmore, is there anyone else in the room?
There's none.
Okay, and we do not have any calls.
Okay, well then we will close the public hearing portion of public comment portion of this hearing. Commissioners, what are you thinking? Don't all jump at once. Commissioner Jensen.
Just to follow up, I don't have a problem with 4 units on the property unless it in fact is not meeting code requirements. I just have a problem with the fact that we already made our concerns clear and they weren't addressed. So I think it's great to add more housing options to the area. I don't mind mixing the uses in a neighborhood. I just don't feel like it met our initial concerns, and it doesn't seem like very many changes were made. So that's my discussion with the commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, I think I'd almost speak a little bit more broadly than just about this project in terms of you're really feeling strongly that with different types of housing, there's a need for certain types of space to be included with each home. I think I said earlier, for example, a balcony with some types of housing, the idea that people do want a place to have a barbecue grill and some type of access to light and air that you get by having space like that. Patios, porches, likewise, can accommodate the same thing. I wouldn't necessarily care if they had 6 homes on the property. If the design was, in my opinion, more appealing, I don't think the building's attractive. I think it's very plain compared with townhomes that I look at every day. And if they could accommodate the parking better and, some of the things that I think are important just for people that would live there.
Thank you, Commissioner Henry.
Yeah, I don't know that my feelings have really changed. If this was on a corner lot and the units face the street, we'd be having a very different conversation. But a townhome turned sideways on a lot the hardscape on this between the building and the parking is like 85% of the lot is hardscape. And I just feel like it's trying to cram too much in on a lot, maximizing profit over livability, in my opinion. Again, going back to the idea of intensity, it's single family homes around it. If this was a duplex, I think we'd also be having a very different conversation. It is a weird lot. It is deep. I also agree that the design is kind of plain. So I'm just struggling with all the livability elements, the garbage cans, the lack of yard to play in, to have a barbecue. It just feels like a shoehorned in building into a space that wasn't meant to be a townhome. I also did notice in the staff report that it doesn't even meet the LDR zone because of, let's see, building shall not front an interior property boundary or parking lot. The rear 3 units front an interior property boundary. It doesn't meet the zone. And I don't know how they could make it meet a zone in this configuration. So I had a question for staff. Are ADUs allowed in this neighborhood?
ADUs are allowed in the RC zone currently, yes.
My suggestion then is a duplex with an ADU. Can you do something like that? Or a single family home and a duplex is what I feel is what the site is asking for. Townhome just feels out of place to me. Can you do a duplex and an ADU?
I believe you can now. Yes, but the recent council changes allows that.
Okay. Yeah, I just feel the configuration is not very livable. And when something's not livable, people are going to eventually get tired of not having the yard. And it's going to have turnover and turnover and turnover. And all the little things are going to, over time, just annoy people till they move somewhere else. And so I would like to see something that is more livable long-term and blends better with the neighborhood. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, do we have comments from the commissioners in the conference room?
At a point of clarification when given the opportunity.
We don't usually have the applicant
Okay.
make comments after they can usually clarify with the public, but we've closed that discussion and now we're moving into the commissioner discussion.
It was a staff comment. I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, anyone in the conference room want to make a comment?
I would just say that my feelings follow the same as Commissioner Henry. I think they're trying to put too much on that lot. I think his comments are the way I feel about it.
Okay, thank you. I also feel like there wasn't, it is sort of too monolithic a building. It's too bad that It seems like this might be actually a lot that would make sense for some of those Scandinavian style houses that we were looking at earlier this evening in the work meeting, but those are not on the table. Let's see, do we have more comments? Is anyone ready to make a motion? Commissioner Jensen.
Before I move on to possibly make a motion, I wanted to find out what motions would be, we would talk about. I feel like we could continue it only if we're still happy with 4 townhomes and we're waiting for them to meet our initial suggestions, right? Does that seem, that would be the way it's still possible to continue it if we're holding out for those changes to be made. But it seems like what we're kind of leaning towards now is if it truly doesn't meet the code because it's facing the wrong direction, and given that the changes haven't been presented to us anyway, we're saying we'd love to see you put as many units on there as is reasonable, but perhaps Brian's suggestion of a duplex with an ADU would be a better option. And so then we would deny it and hope that they come back with that. Is that what everyone else understands? Maybe the two
with the hands up. Okay. Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, I'd be probably more inclined to support a motion to deny. I don't want to speak for the applicant. Maybe staff can help, but I kind of get the impression that maybe they're anxious to get before the city council to get a final decision. So letting them move on that way, I think could be helpful.
Commissioner Henry?
I agree with Commissioner Anderson. I think at this point, I think the building is wrong, personally. To speak frankly, I think it's just not right. And I think it's more than just a couple little modifications. So I'd say a motion to deny.
Okay. Is anyone ready to make that motion or an alternative?
I have another question about that. If we deny it, they don't get a second opinion from the city council unless they appeal it. We would recommend that the zoning be denied and the city council could chime in on that. But the project plan, we have the final say on that. Is that correct?
That is correct. But if this building is something that we don't feel comfortable with, it seems to me actually more of a kindness to the applicant to give them some finality on that rather than have them come back and come back and come back. Any other commissioner thoughts? Okay. This used to be the part where I jumped in with the motion, but I'm not in that role anymore.
I'll make the motion because it's a team effort, Laurie.
Yes.
All right. I would like to make a motion first for item number 1, that we deny the request for project plan approval for 4 townhome units in the LDR zone located at 152 East, 500 South.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, not hearing in or seeing anything, let me call the roll again. Commissioner Henry?
Aye.
Commissioner Knuttgen?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Fife?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Is Commissioner Miller there?
Oh, sorry, aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
And I will also vote aye. So that is a unanimous vote on item number 1. and then a motion on item number 2, or do we have other discussion? Commissioner Anderson?
Again, in the spirit of teamwork, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please.
I move that we recommend that item number 2, the request for a zone change from residential conservation to low density residential to allow for a 4 townhome unit project at 152 East, 500 South be denied. I move that we recommend that that be denied.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Henry. The previous one was seconded by Commissioner Knuttgen, if you didn't get that, staff. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will call the roll again. Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Knuttgen.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Fife.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
And I will also vote aye. So again, that is a unanimous decision. All right. Moving on to item number 3. The Development Services Department requests an ordinance text amendment to amend the airport zones permitted uses section 14.17D.020, yard requirements section 14.17D.040, and the airport adjacent design standards section 14.34.296 of the Provo City Code. And this has citywide application. Mr. Weaver has the staff report.
All right, thank you. So we just adopted these zones a couple months ago, and as we started to work on some projects that are coming through that want to use them, staff noticed a couple corrections that needed to be made, some pretty minor corrections to allow us we have development come through that it can go through more smoothly. In the purpose and the permitted uses, we're striking out products for air cargo. In the purposes and objectives of the zone, it discusses what would be allowed within the airport industrial zone, and staff saw that suffices it. For the yard requirements, the front and side yard, as you can see, so I apologize for on this graphic. If you look on the last page of your staff report, currently in the AI zone, we have no requirement for side yard, interior, and rear yard. All we would be doing is changing the front yard and side yard corner lot to also be no requirement rather than 20 feet. This is to allow parking between the front, in the front yard building, between the front yard and the structure. And last, staff looked at in the materials of the airport adjacent development design standards that that metal siding should be allowed and not prohibited. And looking at the airport area, some of the hangars currently existing do have metal siding. Quite a few do on a rather professional level. And by allowing it to be also in the AI zone, then we have cohesiveness of design. So just a few minor things with these within the zone. Staff has not heard back from anyone in the public or neighborhood about this, and I'm open for any questions.
Commissioners, Commissioner Jensen.
I just had a question about the metal siding, Mr. Weaver. On page 6 of the staff report, it says the exterior finish material on all buildings shall not consist of vinyl manufactured stone and then metals crossed out. Why are vinyl and manufactured stone not allowed, but corrugated metal is? I just feel like those are nicer than corrugated metal in my mind.
If you remember the image I had showing one of the hangars at the airport, it had really nice metal siding on it. And that's what we kind of envisioned when I worked with the airport director on this.
if you envision that, how do you paint that picture so that somebody who doesn't share your vision doesn't get away with metal siding that's not in your vision? Because verbally it would be allowed now.
To allow metal siding, correct? Oh, I see what you're saying.
If the words say metal siding is allowed, your vision maybe doesn't include that, but somebody could interpret the code to say, well, it says it's allowed. You just don't want it to look like, I know what you want it to look nice, like, you know, what you were showing, but metal siding has the ability to not look nice as well.
So you're suggesting to alter the text slightly on that, just so.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, also, do you want it to be allowed on all 4 surfaces or only on the sides and back, but the front still has a nicer design? I just feel like it could open a can of worms if you say across the board, metal siding is allowed. You could end up with some shanties out there that are not what you were envisioning for the project.
Sure.
So those were my concerns. I don't know if there's answers to be given right now or if other people want to chime in on it, but those were the 2 things, that the wording. How do we make sure, do we want to limit it to just the sides and back that metal siding is allowed, but discourage it on the front surface? Do we want to open it up to vinyl and manufactured stone if we also are opening up to metal siding? Do we care about what materials are there if we're going to the siding? Anyway, those were some things that I thought.
I think it goes back. I'm sorry, Lisa.
No, I just was saying you can be done with me if you want to be done with me.
I think it goes back to having it allowed or having a nice finish on all sides. Because again, like I said before, this is an opportunity that we have to make this area look really nice as your entrance into the city when you do land at the airport or passing through the parkway.
Mr. Weaver, do you have written design standards that would establish the quality of metal that would need to be used, so that it would be the higher quality, more professional? Not.
I have not, but I could incorporate that into this.
Okay. Lisa, did you have more?
No, just all that same. So I'll let other people talk now.
Okay, Mr. Anderson.
Boy, the exact same vein. I'm used to industrial projects that are primarily metal-clad buildings that have, it usually ends up being a manufactured stone, like wainscot, or maybe something to try to draw attention to an office or something of that nature. So I would view manufactured stone as maybe different from vinyl siding. I can't imagine with the idea that the buildings that I think we're talking about are probably really large buildings. And maybe I'd like staff to kind of help me understand maybe what some of the uses for the buildings might be. But I can't imagine vinyl siding ever being an appropriate product to clad the types of structures that I'm envisioning in the area with. But metal siding and manufactured stone, or for that matter, any kind of stone product, I think would be great. And maybe to Lisa's point about this level of quality and that type of a thing, this is for airport property, which Provo City owns.
It's not for airport property. This is for a property adjacent to the airport.
Adjacent to the airport. Okay, so private property.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That helps. My thought was just that if the standards were applying to property that the city owned, then maybe just as a matter of contracting for the construction of facilities and things like that, the city could be more particular. But any thoughts about the types of uses that the structures we're talking about here would be accommodating?
Yeah, if you look on attachment 1 in the staff report, it lists all of the permitted uses within the AI zone.
What might be some of the predominant ones that you'd expect, though? I mean, just maybe even guessing.
I would think warehousing would be one that would be coming in. Perhaps vehicle rental facilities, We could have hotels in the area, other activities that relate to the airport.
Okay, that helps. I guess for that broad of a range where you're talking about maybe a professional office, you probably wouldn't want a steel professional office building, right?
Right.
But for a warehouse, it's either going to be steel or it's going to be tilt-up concrete, probably. There's maybe some value, and I'm not trying to make this more difficult than it needs to be specific about exterior materials in accordance with uses, just as a thought, being maybe more permissive with bigger uses, bulkier buildings, and that type of thing. Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Henry.
Oh, I'm unmuted. I think I just forgot my question. Is there some legal term that needs to be in here that says this is not an exhaustive list, but generally speaking, these things, just to prevent someone from coming in with some material we're not thinking about, and they say, well, you don't say it's not available. So I don't know if there's some legal jargon that needs to be in there that says including but not limited to, or something like that.
Consistent with design standards.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. Do we have any comments from the conference room?
No.
Okay. And we need to open this up to public comment, but I don't think we have anyone. So Rachel, will you start a timer?
Yes, I will start a timer. Mr. Weaver, can I have you put the public comment slide up?
Yep.
Okay, no public comment, no calls.
Thank you. We'll close the public comment portion for this item. Commissioners, do we have additional comments, recommendations as to language?
Yeah, I might have one about the yard requirements, just trying to get some clarification. So it says there will be no front yard or side yard requirements, meaning is that kind of like the setbacks per se on that of the 20 feet, or is that like
So there would
landscaping?
There would be a front yard regardless of 10 feet, and that would be landscaped. The remaining of that could be parking lot in front of it between the yard and the structure.
So there would need to be a 10-foot setback, and then after that, they wouldn't have any requirements as far
Correct.
as a yard per se.
Correct.
Just landscaping.
Yep.
Okay.
Just to clarify for me, Javin, what you're saying is that it has to have 10 feet of landscaping and then they can have parking or not as they choose, or other.
Correct, yes.
Uses.
And in thinking with the uses within this area, some of them may want to be up right up adjacent to the roadway or such, if you were maybe a restaurant or something. But if you're going to be a warehouse or professional office within this, there has to be the flexibility.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Peter. How much land area are we talking about with this zone? Is it just like the area surrounding the airport, or are we talking like, does it push further east into I guess, more undeveloped farm areas of Provo.
Yeah.
Are you pulling up the land use map?
Yes. So if you can see this, can you, Laurie?
No, we're still looking at the list of materials, permitted uses, yard requirements, the code. There we go.
So everywhere that, this is the Southwest Future Land Use Map showing the general plan of areas, and all of this area, this is airport compatible. This could be areas that could be rezoned to the AI zone.
Click on streets, please. What's Center Street?
Can you zoom out just one notch?
This is Center Street. Here's Lakeview Parkway.
And so you're saying this is what could be zoned as AI
Correct.
if the council decides and whatnot, but AI is an option.
Yes. This area says airport overlay, and the zone was designed so that way anything that would be put in the AI zone would not be incompatible with being adjacent to the airport. So it facilitates that overlay.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. I really liked Commissioner Anderson's comment about external materials consistent with uses of the individual properties. That made a lot of sense to me. I'm wondering, and Jovin, you can respond to this. Is it better for us to have you come back with new language or direct you to include such language when you go to the city council?
I think direct me to bring language to city council.
Okay.
I understand what Dave's saying, and it makes sense. And I think it's a good suggestion.
Commissioner Jensen?
I think since we're not really saying we have a problem with the changes, we're just trying to refine the changes, that would be a motion I'd be comfortable with.
Nobody's squawking, so you are invited to make such a motion.
Are we sure we don't want to chitty chat about it longer? Someone else want an opportunity to make a motion, or should I steal another one?
I can
All
give
right,
it.
here we go.
Oh, somebody said.
This is Miles.
Miles? Okay, I'm going to be quiet.
Okay, you might have to walk me through this again, though. Okay,
So this is legislative, and we're making a recommendation to the city council.
Okay, so we recommend that the city council approves the text amendment to the airport zones permitted uses as stated in the section and the yard requirements and the design standards.
Yes, and you would perhaps extend that to say revised to include language as discussed in the meeting.
Gotcha. With conditions that the changes be brought and the revises to the text be brought to city council.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, to restate, it is to recommend approval for item 3 with the expectation that some language will be revised to include responses to our discussion. Do we have any other discussion on the motion?
Maybe a question, Madam Chair. So as I see it, we would be still prohibiting the use of metal as an exterior material, except for maybe things like warehouses or manufacturing buildings. Is that how you understand it, Javin?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
So we wouldn't have an ironclad hotel unless it were a
Yeah.
specific style thing.
Would this also extend to the airport hangars as well? Are they typically metal?
Everything at the airport is already rezoned and they follow their own standards.
Okay. So this is just outside the airport. Got it.
Yep.
Okay, do we want any changes to the motion? I'm comfortable with it. So if everybody else is comfortable, we will go to the roll call again. Commissioner Henry.
Aye.
Commissioner Knuttgen.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Fife.
Aye.
Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So that again is unanimous. Awesome. Do we have any other items of housekeeping or business that we need to discuss? Seeing no hands, I would invite a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Lisa has her hand up.
Oh, do you have?
I was just going to suggest that maybe the next work meeting, we spend 15 minutes introducing ourselves because maybe we'll be Zoom for a while here. So it might be nice to get to know each other sooner rather than later. Just a thought to make up for the fact that we're not meeting in person.
All right. We will ask staff to take that under advisement. Okay. All right. Everybody in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
See you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.